we're going to do today is actually show you how to cover uneven walls with the Cineat dry liner system. The tools you will need: a pair of tin snips for cutting the metal, a tape measure for doing the setting out, a chalk line, spirit level, a drywall screw gun if you have one available. If not, any cordless drill will do. And not forgetting the old faithful pencil. The components that are required is a J-track. This is fixed to the floor and to the ceiling with its largest edge facing into the room. A wall channel. This will actually sit into the J-track. And finally, the brackets. We do the brackets in two different sizes. This is the standard reach bracket and the extended reach bracket. Fixings, we'll actually use a wafer head screw for fixing track down to the floor, providing it's timber. If it's concrete, we would actually use the nailable plug. Timber ceilings, we would actually use a high thread screw. Remember, we need 25mm minimum into the timber. Alternatively, again, if we've got a concrete soffit, we revert back to the nailable plug. For fixing our brackets to our wall channel, we would actually use a self-drilling pan head screw, 12mm in length. And finally, we would have our 25mm self-tapping screw for fixing our plasterboards to our metal system. So these are the tools, components and fixings you'll need to install the dry liner system. Happy building. We have a J-track, which is actually fixed to the floor, a minimum of 25mm away from the wall, but it will actually extend on the brackets to 60mm. We also do an extended reach bracket that will actually go, again, minimum 25mm up to 130mm. J-track is actually fixed to the floor, and that is fixed at 600mm centres using 13mm wafer head screws. The reason for that is that if it's going into a timber floor, all floor coverings start at 18mm. Once we've fixed the track to the floor, we can then, using our tin snips, cut our dry liner channel. Now we would cut this 3 to a maximum of 5mm short. Place this into the bottom track and plumb up on the internal corner onto the ceiling. We then do exactly the same process in the opposite internal corner. Snap a chalk line onto the ceiling, and our track can then be fixed to the ceiling using the Cineat high thread screws. The brackets are actually fitted at 8 and 1600. The reason for that is, if you look at it, it's what we call the impact zone. So if you were to lean against the wall, push against the wall, anything like that, that's where you would actually get most of the impact. So again, we measure 800mm up from the floor and 16, and again you do that in the opposite internal corner. We then snap 2 chalk lines on the walls. What we need now is we would actually mark out, we've put a bracket fairly close to the wall, and if you're using 900 wide plasterboards, you'd want your centres at 450. At 1200 wide plasterboards, you need your centres at 600. Once we've marked our centres, we would drill a hole, and we can either plug and screw, or we can use a suitable fixing. And the brackets are fixed to the wall. The brackets themselves come flat packed, easier for packaging, etc. What we do is the raised side and the indent side we place on a right angle corner and simply press. All our brackets and all our channels have been fixed. What we need to do now is fix the bracket to the channel, because you can see that the wall would actually flex. So what we do is we bend the bracket round. We actually use a smaller screw, a pan head, and we drill through the side and the bracket. And that secures the channel. So on the opposite side, we do exactly the same. And the excess is actually sticking out. You simply fold out of the way. And that's now secured our channel to our bracket and removed any of the flex. Internal corners, what we actually do is we push the bracket onto the face. We can then use a wafer head screw. Because these have got a nice large flat head, you can plasterboard over them. Put the wafer onto the face, and now we've removed the flex again. We now have a perfectly plumb surface ready for plasterboarding, which we're now going to demonstrate. Obviously, to fix our plasterboards, we're actually going to be using what we call a drywall screw gun. This allows us to make sure that the screw goes to the correct depth every single time. If I actually twist clockwise, you can see that the drill bit actually comes out further, anti-clockwise, and the drill bit actually retracts. It's magnetic, so it will hold the screw in place, and also the screw gun doesn't actually spin until you actually put the pressure on. We're going to be using a 25mm self-tapping screw. The reason for that is you need 10mm minimum actually into the metal. So a 12.5mm plasterboard plus your 10mm into the metal is 22.5. The nearest screw length would actually be a 25mm self-tapping screw. No plasterboard should ever be in contact with the ground. Gypsum loves water, so it will actually just soak up any moisture. The screw has not gone quite deep enough, a little adjustment, and now it's actually pulling the paper back, but without breaking the core of the board. We screw fix every 300mm, and if you actually put the heel of the gun on and mark, they will actually be 300mm apart. So with our plasterboard in place, you can see that it lines up very nicely onto the centre line of our channel. And this will allow for our next board to butt up tight to our first board, and we can continue covering the wall surface. You can see then what we've actually got is a nice true surface and a quick and simple method.